At the class reunion, Asher's white moonlight, who went abroad for further study, has returned. Some people started to heckle and said, "President Asher, Isabella came back just for you. You have to treat her well." Asher clenched the cup, his voice hoarse. Okay. However, I had been married to him for 3 years. Moreover, I became lame in one leg to save him. But he didn't even have the courage to admit that I was his wife. Later, I took the initiative to divorce and disappeared from his world. But then he went crazy looking for me. 01 It was the 3rd wedding anniversary of Asher and me. I specially booked the top floor of the seaside hotel. He had promised me, but at 9 o'clock, he called me. "Sorry, Arya. My company had a sudden meeting and I can't make it." Disappointed, I sat blankly by the window. Watching the tide rise and fall, my heart was filled with bitterness. Meetings can be held at any time, but our anniversary only comes once a year. I didn't say this. I knew he was busy and I should be understanding. Until Isabella sent me a video. In the video, Asher lowered his head and his expression was hard to see. People around were clamoring, "President Asher, Isabella came back just for you. You have to treat her well." My heart tightened. I stared intently at Asher, my husband's face on the phone, expecting him to say, "Sorry, I'm already married." But after a long silence, he clenched his fists. Finally, with red eyes, he said, "Okay." The wine glass in my hand fell to the ground. Glass shards scattered everywhere, and one piece pierced my white and slender calf. Blood gushed out, but I didn't feel any pain at all. 02 I hurriedly took a taxi to the address she sent to pick up Asher. He had had surgery on his stomach due to excessive drinking before, and the doctor had told him not to drink anymore. I was really worried about him. The box was noisy and the lights were dim. Finally, when passing by a private room, I heard voices inside. Someone mentioned me, "By the way, what about that Arya who kept pestering you and Isabella to deliver meals in college? She isn't still contacting you, is she?" None of these classmates knew that I was married to him. Indeed, we had been in a secret marriage for 3 years, and few people knew about it. I waited for a long time, and blood was still gushing from my leg. Seeing that he didn't speak, a boy spoke up again. "It said that she's lame. How could she still have the nerve to pester our President Asher? She doesn't even consider whether she's worthy or not." The others laughed. Isabella's eyes swept over me standing outside the door, with a provocative look. "Asher, I came back this time just for you. You should have been waiting for me all these years, right?" Asher looked at her. His eyes were deep. My face felt like it had been slapped, burning hot. Tears rolled down. In a hurry, I accidentally fell at the door, making a loud noise. Asher saw me. A flash of panic crossed his eyes, and his lips tightened. But he turned his head to the side, as if I was just a bothersome pursuer to him. He let the people around humiliate me and watch me make a fool of myself. "Yo, Asher, isn't this your licking dog Arya? She's even become a cripple and still following you? Ha ha ha, she really has a thick skin. Isabella has come back. Don't be so shameless as to keep lingering around President Asher. Look at what your status is." I lowered my head and struggled to get up. Then I limped out. The blood soaked my dress. A night breeze blew, and I shivered, hugging my shoulders. It was strange. Clearly it was summer, but why was I so cold all over? I reached out and touched my face, only to find that it was covered with tears. 03 I had liked Asher for 10 years. But I didn't deserve him. He was the young master of the Beijing circle, while I was just the daughter of his family's nanny. Isabella was well matched with him and they were childhood sweethearts. In high school, when Asher was pursuing Isabella, I gave him advice. I brought meals to him and Isabella, bought sanitary napkins for Isabella, and made brown sugar water for her to drink. I even helped them with their homework, just hoping he would look at me more. If Isabella had liked him, I might have given up long ago and blessed them. But I knew Isabella didn't like him. Yet Asher just loved her. On her 18th birthday, Asher hired all the taxis in the whole city and played love songs on a loop. The LED advertising screens all over the city were showing his blatant love for Isabella. Even, to make Isabella happy, he burned 5 million yuan to set off fireworks in the city sky for half an hour. All of this made me extremely envious. However, Isabella just said to him coldly, "Asher, I don't like you, and that's that." The more she was like this, the more crazy Asher became, doubling his kindness to her. His love was Isabella's capital to show off. Once, when he was drunk, I said to him, "Asher, Isabella doesn't love you but doesn't want to let you go. Don't like her anymore. She's a bitch, a heartbreaker, deliberately stringing you along." Asher's eyes turned red, and he shouted at me for the first time. "If I don't like her, do you think I like you? I'm just willing to be strung along by her. Do you have anything to do with it?" After that day, I gave up and never looked for him again. But later, Isabella's family declined. Despite the opposition of his whole family, Asher knelt down and begged his father to invest in Isabella's family. Finally, he saved Isabella's family. Only then did Isabella agree to be with him. Although I had let go of him, I was truly happy for him that day. However, after graduating from university, Isabella still went abroad for her own development. Before Isabella left, Asher said harshly, "If you leave, we'll break up." I knew he couldn't bear to part with Isabella because I saw him secretly preparing a diamond ring that could only be bought once in a lifetime, intending to propose to Isabella after graduation. His love for Isabella was passionate, dazzling, and unreserved. But Isabella had always been indifferent to him. She left without looking back. This almost killed Asher. And I was the one who quietly stayed by his side at this time. I accompanied him to drink. When he was drunk, I was even drunker than him. When he was hospitalized, I accompanied and took care of him, cooked for him, and nursed his stomach to the point where he could eat whatever he wanted now. Later, he fell in love with extreme sports, like racing cars and skydiving. I, who had always been timid and quiet, did these regardless of my life for him. "Asher, if you want to do it, I must accompany you." He raised his eyebrows and glanced at me. His eyes showed no sign of joy or anger. "Little follower, you like me that much?" I nodded. The moment I looked up and met his eyes, my heart was pounding so hard that my eardrums were roaring. For the first time, I bravely said, "I like you, Asher. I've liked you for a long, long time." Coming back to my senses, I murmured, "It's been a long time, Asher. I've loved you for 10 years. Is it time to end this?" 04 When I got home, I found the first aid kit. I disinfected my injured leg and wrapped it with gauze. After doing this, my tears had already wet the gauze. Suddenly, my phone rang. I thought it was Asher. I opened it with surprise, only to find that it was the doctor whose number I had left in the hospital before. It was my best friend, Luna. "Congratulations, Arya. You're 4 weeks pregnant. How come you didn't know?" The news was so sudden that I didn't have time to react. I should have been happy originally, because I was extremely looking forward to having a child with Asher's eyes and eyebrows. But now that he really came, I was scared. I was afraid that Asher didn't want the child at all. If it hadn't been for Asher getting drunk one night a month ago, this child wouldn't have come. I knew that he had always not wanted me to get pregnant. Should I tell him this news? Late at night, I hugged my arms and stared blankly at my phone. After hesitating for a moment, I still sent him a message. I thought that as the father of the child, he should have the right to know. Or rather, it was my last effort with this child towards him and this marriage. "Asher, I'm pregnant. Can you come home and accompany me? I miss you." Time passed by every minute and second. The room was terribly quiet, and I could even hear my own heartbeat. When his message appeared, I picked up the phone eagerly at the first time. But I saw him say, "Child? How could we have a child?" I explained in a flurry, "You were drunk one night last month, so, sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." I apologized subconsciously. The more I said, the less confident I became. But another voice in my heart was reminding me, why should I apologize? I just loved him and wanted a child with his eyes and eyebrows. What was wrong with that? Then get rid of it. Moreover, with your condition, what if the child is also sick? This news exploded in my mind like a thunderclap. Then get rid of it. So the continuation of our lives meant so little to him? I knew he didn't love me, but I didn't expect him to dislike me so much. But I became lame because of him. And this wouldn't be passed on. If it hadn't been for that night when I went to that dark alley for him, how could I have ended up like this? My heart hurt so much that it even hurt to breathe. Just as I was distracted, I accidentally saw a message Isabella posted on Moments. I knew that no matter what, you would be waiting for me in place. In the picture, Isabella was wearing a diamond ring. I recognized this diamond ring. It was the one Asher had specially customized overseas to propose to her. It was a diamond ring that could only be bought once in a lifetime. And on the hand that was tightly holding hers, there was the red string for peace that I had begged for him before. I suddenly laughed. For myself. For these 10 years of loving him. After all, I was just a joke. At that time, when he had a car accident while racing, I was so worried that I went to a remote temple and knelt down, kowtowing step by step. There were a total of 100 steps. I got that red string in the rain. To ensure his safety. Strangely enough, when I put the red string on his hand, he, who had been in a coma, finally woke up. Later, I didn't let him race cars anymore. He listened to me. After waking up, he seemed like a different person. "Arya, let's be together." I thought he had really let go of Isabella and was ready to be with me. Unexpectedly, when the person who had almost killed him reappeared, he could still abandon everything, abandon me, and abandon our child. His friend was right. I was just his dog. Come when called, go when dismissed. It was extremely ridiculous. 05 I closed my eyes in despair, thinking about that day. In college, I majored in dance. On the eve of graduation, my teacher gave me an opportunity. Once selected, would get a chance to further my studies at a well-known ballet troupe abroad. My teacher repeatedly told me not to miss it. However, a call from his friend that day made me miss this once-in-lifetime opportunity, and I forever missed my dream. The drunk Asher somehow provoked a group of hooligans who emerged from nowhere. They didn't know their limits and blocked the drunk Asher in the alley, not letting him out. Only 2 or 3 of his good friends who went with him secretly ran out and called me. Alone, he naturally couldn't fight off dozens of people. On one side was the man I loved the most. On the other side was perhaps an opportunity that I might only have once in my life. Gritting my teeth, I still took a taxi to that place. In the dark alley, the thought that Asher might be getting beaten up inside made me fearless. Before going in, I called the police. The police told me not to go alone. They knew those people, they were well-known troublemakers in the area, causing trouble everywhere. But how could I rest assured? I still went in. By the faint light, I finally found the drunk Asher. It turned out that he got angry with these people because one of them was once one of Isabella's pursuers. He was unhappy seeing Asher win the goddess's heart back then and made some sarcastic remarks. And Isabella was a pain that Asher couldn't mention. He picked up a wine bottle and smashed it on that person's head. When there was blood, these people refused to let him go no matter what. Later, I almost knelt down and begged them. When that person saw me, he laughed. "After all these years, you still like Asher. You're even more of a dog licking him than he is." His words were harsh, and the people around laughed. My face burned. In fact, I was already Asher's girlfriend, but I still had to plead for him because of another woman's fight. At that moment, I wanted to give up. But at least I had to get him out safely and then break up with him. Later, I don't know who rushed up with a stick. I only remember that I had to protect Asher. Fists and sticks rained down on me. Later, I passed out from the pain. When I woke up again, the doctor told me that I could never dance again. It would be difficult for me to even walk as freely as a normal person. Asher's eyes were red, and he lay beside my bed. "Are you crazy, Arya?" I looked at him, numbly. Thinking that I could no longer dance, I couldn't even cry. I looked at Asher and finally said with a smile, "Asher, let's break up." He refused to agree no matter what. He hugged me tightly, his arms gripping hard. His voice was hoarse, with some hatred. "I won't let any of those who hurt you go. As for you, let's get married. Arya, marry me." He proposed to me. There was no ring, no ceremony, just such a sentence out of emotion or guilt. And I got married to him as excitedly as if I had won $100 million lottery. After getting married, he didn't give me anything. And I was considerate enough not to ask for anything. Except for the 9-yuan marriage certificate at home, few people knew about our relationship. I only told my best friend, Luna. Since my mother passed away, he was the only family I had left. So I treated him even better, not only because I loved him but also because he was my only support. But just now, he didn't want our child and went to another woman's house. As if fearing that I wasn't completely disheartened yet, messages from Isabella bombarded my phone one after another, shattering all my illusions and severing my last shred of hope. "Arya, Asher married you just out of guilt. He got drunk just now and gave me the ring he couldn't give me before. Even if you're his wife, you'll never be able to get into his heart. Even the day he got drunk and caused trouble with you was because he saw the news of my relationship announcement. And not long ago, he got drunk when he knew I was coming back to the country. Arya, in front of Asher and me, you're just a third party. What if a dog-licking person gets what they want? Aren't they still just a dog?" My hands were shaking so much that I could hardly hold the phone. My heart hurt so much that my lips turned purple. The phone fell to the ground with a clear sound, like the sound of my heart breaking. In an instant, my love for him seemed to dissipate. Although her words were harsh, she was right. Over the years, all his joys and sorrows were related to Isabella. And I had loved the wrong person after all. I thought he had seen my feelings, and with all the care and concern over the years, he would gradually fall for me. But no love is just no love. I wiped the tears off my face, dialed my friend Luna's phone number, and made an appointment for an abortion in the afternoon. "Asher, I've loved you for 10 years. Let it end today." 06 Luna tried to persuade me for a long time. She said that it was a pity to stop loving Asher after 10 years. She also said that if I divorced him now, it would be too easy on the scumbag and the slut. At least, I should make them pay. I smiled. "Luna, I know you're doing it for my own good. But let's talk about it after the surgery." After the anesthetic was injected into my body, I became drowsy. In a trance, I seemed to see Asher. It was the young Asher, with his unruly eyebrows and eyes. As the young master of the Beijing circle, he was fearless. When he saw me being blocked in the alley by several men, he directly kicked those men to the ground. "Don't you even find out who I am? Do you know the Asher family? You can't afford to offend us. She's my friend." In fact, I didn't know him at all. But he pulled me out of that despair, and in my heart, he became a unique existence. For the first time in my gloomy and withered life, there was hope and color. Later, I went to the place where my mother worked and saw Asher at a glance. But he had long forgotten me. Of course, as ordinary as I was, how could he remember? But for him, I made all the efforts I could, just to get closer to him. He liked Isabella. So I learned to change my figure, grew my hair long, wore short skirts, and in summer, I covered myself with long pants and long-sleeved clothes, sweating all over with prickly heat, just to be as white as her. The hardest part was losing weight. I went from a 150-pound chubby girl to a 90-pound girl by forcefully dieting, even developing severe anorexia. I became more and more beautiful, so beautiful that even the campus heartthrob took a second look at me and asked for my contact information. But I had always liked only him. As the memories flowed, I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, the dull pain in my lower abdomen indicated that my child with him had completely left me. My hand unconsciously touched my flat abdomen. My heart finally stopped hurting. When I thought of Asher again, my heart was terrifyingly indifferent. It was as if with the loss of the child, a part of me had also died on this cold operating table. Luna came in. You need to rest well during this period and replenish your nutrition. If you don't want to go home and have nowhere to go, you can come to my place. I thanked her with a smile. Her eyes were moist. Don't thank me, you fool. I hadn't cried yet, but she cried for me. But she was right. I wouldn't go back to that home anymore. And besides her place, I had nowhere to go. One day after I graduated, my stepfather somehow found the place where my mother and I lived. In a fit of anger, he accidentally beat my mother to death and was finally imprisoned. I never expected that the price of completely getting rid of my stepfather, who would beat me when he was drunk, would be so high. It was my mother's death. I, the unfilial daughter, was in the hospital at that time, unconscious after blocking punches and kicks for Asher. So I didn't have time to see my mother for the last time. Precisely because of this, Asher promised to marry me. Because he caused me to lose the chance to save my mother. If I had gone home after the performance that day, my mother wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have lost my only family member. The first thing I did when I went to my best friend's house was to contact a lawyer and draw up a divorce agreement. I wanted to divorce Asher and draw a clear line. 07 After I sent the divorce agreement to Asher, it took him a whole day to realize that I didn't go home. Oh, maybe he just came back from Isabella, his white moonlight. He called me. Arya, where are you? I said calmly, I've sent you the divorce agreement. Sign it. He was stunned. He seemed to be in disbelief and repeated, divorce? Arya, say it again. You want to divorce me? Just because I didn't recognize you in the bar? I felt a bit sad because of the contempt in his tone. Did he think that in my heart, I loved him so much that I could give up my self-esteem? He didn't admit my existence in front of everyone. Even when he saw me fall in the bar, he pretended not to see me, just to preserve his so-called face. He treated me like a dog that could be called and dismissed at will, and I was still around because of love. I did love him, but not to that extent. Thinking of this, a wave of nausea welled up in my heart, and I retched. Arya, what's wrong? I frowned. Nothing. Please deal with the divorce as soon as possible. I felt disgusted even if it was postponed for one more day. I didn't care what else he said and hung up the phone directly. However, I started having nightmares day and night. Although I left Asher, he still wouldn't let me go in my dreams. He always stood in front of me with a cold face, and in front of everyone, he trampled on my self-esteem without mercy. If it weren't for her being lame and having no mother, pitiful and with nowhere to go, why would I marry her? Then came Isabella's sarcastic laughter. Arya, you might as well die if you live like this. I shook my head and cried. In a daze, I saw my mother. She stood in the distance, looking at me with pity. I would always remember what she said to me, Arya, it's not that Mom doesn't support your free love, but you know that we and the Asher family are not in the same world. They will never truly accept you. Mom doesn't want you to suffer. But at that time, I was blinded by love, running forward bravely and unreservedly. In the end, I was covered in bruises and had nothing. I knew. Mom, I understand everything. I cried and ran towards my mother, begging her not to leave me. But she just smiled, turned around, and faced away from me. No matter how hard I ran forward, she just got farther and farther away. I was shaken awake by Luna. With tears all over my face, I hugged her and cried bitterly. How I regretted it. If I hadn't met Asher, maybe I would still be the ordinary me. But I would also still have a mother who loved me. But now I had nothing. Luna patted my back, her voice choked. It's okay, Arya. You still have me. I'm also your family. The next day, Luna took me to the hospital. We took all kinds of films and had my blood drawn. Finally, the doctor suggested that I go to the psychiatry department. This scared Luna a lot. The doctor smiled and comforted her. It might just be mild depression. Don't worry too much. Depression, I was familiar with it. During the time when my mother died, I couldn't sleep all night. I woke up crying every day. At that time, Asher would patiently pat my back every day, coaxing me softly. He said, I'm sorry, Arya. I made you lose your mother. In the future, I'll treat you well instead of her. Arya, be good. I'll drive away the monsters in your dreams so you can have a good sleep. At that time, we hugged each other tightly, healing each other's broken hearts and bodies. Maybe, at that time, Asher really liked and pitied me. But his love for me was too insignificant. As soon as Isabella appeared, it fell apart. Finally, the doctor's diagnosis for me was that due to the great shock, I had developed emotional disorder and moderate depression. Luna asked the doctor in disbelief, Are you misdiagnosing? She's so young. How could she have this kind of illness? I stopped her. Don't make things difficult for the doctor. This is also a good thing. I'll never be a love-struck person again. You've always wanted to get rid of my love-struck mentality, right? Now it's finally gone. Shouldn't you be happy? Her nose twitched, and she cried again. I hoped you would wake up, but not to see you lose everything and become heartbroken. I'm sorry, Arya. I didn't protect you well. If I had known, I should have tried my best to stop you from marrying Asher. I shook my head. I didn't blame anyone. I only blamed myself for being stupid enough to like him. If I could choose, I would rather die in that dark and gloomy alley than meet him again. 08 I thought Asher would send the divorce agreement to me soon because he had always been a forced role in this marriage. Forced to be with me, forced to get a marriage certificate with me, and forced to do many things that a couple should do. I remembered a small thing a long time ago. On our first wedding anniversary, I set our date at an amusement park. When he arrived, he had a serious face. In the end, I dragged him through the whole process. But I knew that only I was happy. Since then, I never went on a date with him again. It was really ridiculous. In 3 years of marriage, the number of times we held hands could be counted on one's fingers. However, it didn't matter if he didn't divorce. I contacted a lawyer and asked him to prepare materials for a lawsuit. Do you need to sue him for having an affair during the marriage? If there is enough evidence, you should get some compensation. I looked at my leg that could no longer dance and smiled. Of course. Let it be the money for buying my life for this leg of mine and for saving his life. I didn't wait for Asher's divorce agreement, but I waited for him instead. One rainy day, Asher knocked on the door of Luna's house. He appeared in front of me in a sorry state. His hair and clothes were still dripping wet. I looked at the tall and handsome Asher. What welled up in my heart was no longer surging love, but indifference. I frowned and asked him, What are you doing here? Why haven't you given me the divorce agreement yet? He avoided answering and just asked me hoarsely, Arya, why don't you go home? I sneered. Anyway, you're going to replace me, so you still want me to go home? What for? To watch you be affectionate with Isabella? Asher, I'm a human being. I have a heart, and I can feel sad too. He didn't seem to realize that I already knew everything. He was a bit suddenly anxious. You're overthinking. There's nothing between me and Isabella. Really? I raised my eyebrows and looked at him. For the first time, I felt that I didn't know the man in front of me at all. Nothing? You left me on our 3rd anniversary to meet her. Nothing. You put the ring you treasured for years back on her finger. Nothing. You couldn't wait to get into her bed on the first day you met her again. Asher, don't make me look down on you. Since you love her so humbly that you can still cling to her after being abandoned for so many years, then I admit it. I give up. Let's get a divorce. My words came crashing down on him like a storm, leaving him stunned. He had never heard me speak so harshly. Indeed, I had always only been harsh to myself. When I was pursuing him, I was tough on myself. After marrying him, I still endured grievances. He frowned. Arya, I know you're a bit unhappy because Isabella came back. You can throw a little tantrum, but that's enough. I've come to pick you up, so you should follow the lead and come back. Otherwise, I might really abandon you. Besides, do you have anywhere else to go except my place? His words completely broke my heart. I had lost my only family member because of him. I didn't get to see my mom for the last time. He actually used this to threaten me. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. Realizing he had said the wrong thing, he reached out to hug me, but I shook him off fiercely. Asher, do you know what the thing I regret the most is? I smiled, but there was no trace of a smile in my eyes. I shouldn't have saved you. You should have died in that alley. I turned around and slammed the door shut. Then I squatted down and hugged myself helplessly. Overwhelming suffocation submerged me. Outside the door, Asher was still pounding on the door desperately. Arya, I was wrong. Please open the door, okay? Before I fainted, I saw my best friend Luna running over in a hurry. A sense of guilt welled up in my heart. It seemed that everyone who loved me would suffer because of me. When I was very young, my biological father died in an accident, and we didn't get a single penny of compensation. My mother was only 24 years old at that time. At the request of my grandparents, she remarried, taking me with her. At first, we thought the step-father she married was an honest man, but later, after he lost his job, he started smoking, drinking, and domestic violence. He would beat my mom at every turn. But for my sake, she endured it. However, one day, my mom found out that he actually brought a strange girl home. That's when she finally couldn't take it anymore. She was even more afraid that such a thing would happen to her only daughter. So she secretly ran away with me, moving from one city to another. I was just like what my step-father called me when he was beating me, a burden, a jinx. I killed my mom and dad, and I also killed my own child with my own hands. Everyone who was close to me and loved me would have bad luck. The moment I opened my eyes, I subconsciously pushed Luna away. But after seeing it was her, I quickly apologized. Sorry, Luna. It's all my fault. I've brought you trouble and inconvenience. I'd better rent a house and live on my own. But she refused to let me go. She held me tightly with her hands. Arya, you're not a jinx. None of this is your fault. It's Asher who's blind and has no fortune. He's not a human being. He's the one who's sorry for you. You mustn't blame or punish yourself because of this, okay? I hugged her tightly in return. I wanted to thank her for always pulling me back when I was about to give up on myself. She held me up and helped me move forward. 09 After Asher left that day, I had a period of peaceful days. But somehow, Isabella found Luna's house. When she opened the door and saw me, undisguised contempt showed in her eyes. After looking around, she said with a smile, "The young mistress of the prestigious Asher family lives in such a shabby place." What? Were you kicked out by Asher? I looked at her coldly. What are you here for? If you have nothing to do, you're not welcome here. Although Asher was love-struck and loved her to the point of being brainless, I was very clear about the reason why she came back from abroad and hooked up with Asher. Without the help of the Asher family, the Isabella family's business couldn't last for a few years. Now it's almost on the verge of bankruptcy. It was the Isabella family who forced her to return to the country and forced her to remarry this young master of the Asher family who loved her to death. Nothing. I just want to tell you to stop pestering Asher. He only has me in his heart. You're just a pretty good medicine for him to soothe his pain. Now that I'm back, you're no longer needed. I found it a bit funny to see her so confident. I retorted, it seems that Miss Isabella doesn't know yet. I've already asked Asher for a divorce, but he has always refused. I thought he loved you so much that he couldn't wait to divorce me. It seems he doesn't love you that much after all. My words indeed made her angry. She reached out to slap me. But I grabbed her hand and pushed her hard. She lost her balance and fell to the ground. Blood beads appeared on her wrists and ankles. She stared at me viciously, as if she could devour me alive. I folded my arms and told her with a smile, please go find Asher. Don't bother me. Then I closed the door. I thought this matter would end there. But at night, Luna suddenly called me while she was scrolling through Douyin. Arya, come and take a look. Is this you? I walked over curiously. I saw the video. The angle in the video was well chosen. I looked fierce, pushing Isabella to the ground. Only part of the conversation was intercepted, making me sound like a bad person. And her caption was, the nanny's daughter who seduced the rich lady's boyfriend while she was studying abroad. Not only that, this so-called insider slandered me wantonly. They said that I had been pestering Asher since high school and college, always trying to interfere in their relationship. They even said that Isabella was forced to go abroad because of me, and this time she came back to catch up with me, but didn't expect to be treated like this. The public opinion quickly turned one-sided. There was an overwhelming amount of abuse directed at me. Some observant people also noticed that I had trouble walking. My God, a lame person actually has the nerve to compete with a rich lady for a man. Don't you know your own place? The vicious lame woman, knowing she's a third party and still acting like one. She's been so shameless all these years. Hee, the mistress should die. Soon, someone dug out that my step-father was a murderer, and the person he killed was my biological mother. And that day, I was slandered as pestering Asher and not caring about my mother's life or death. They said she deserved to die. Who asked her to give birth to such a mistress daughter? She deserved to marry such a domestic violence man and finally be stabbed to death. It's the retribution for giving birth to such a daughter. No wonder she's so unlucky. It seems that even God can't stand it. Maybe she killed both her parents. Who knows? They could say whatever they wanted about me. But why did they talk about my mom? Maybe I loved the wrong person. You can call me love-struck, call me stupid, call me an idiot. But why did they scold that kind-hearted woman? Watching the comments come in one after another, like a tide submerging me, I couldn't breathe as if I was drowning. My face started to turn an abnormal red, and my hands clenched tightly into fists. Luna noticed something was wrong with me. She quickly called my name and rushed to get medicine for me to take. But those words scolding me seemed to take root and sprout in my heart, playing on a loop in my mind. With Isabella's instigation, the matter quickly escalated to the point where everyone knew about it. And I, the so-called culprit in their eyes, the mistress who destroyed the relationship between the two of them, was hospitalized due to the endless cyber violence. While Luna was out grocery shopping, I took a fruit knife and cut my wrist. It was because I saw people abusing her under my only friend Luna's account. The words were as ugly as they could be. At night, I heard her crying secretly. Tossing and turning, I couldn't fall asleep anymore. I didn't want to cause her any more trouble. But unfortunately, I didn't succeed. Luna rushed back in time and sent me to the hospital. The doctor said that I had developed severe depression. When Luna was crying and saying sorry, my phone rang. I hung up, but it rang again. I hung up again. Finally, Luna couldn't stand it anymore and picked it up to answer. Who is this? Because there had been so many calls from people abusing me recently, I had become numb. I thought it was just another person coming to scold me. But it was Asher. After recognizing his voice, Luna started to curse. Are you still a human being, Asher? Arya lost everything because of you. But what about you? You know very well whether she's a mistress or not. It was you who asked her to be with you, and it was you who proposed to her. She never interfered in your relationship. But you? You had an affair. Now Isabella is posting those false remarks online. Why don't you post a clarification? Is this how you treat her? She's been forced to commit suicide by you and Isabella. What else do you want? Do you have to make sure she's dead to be satisfied? Asher's voice was filled with unconcealable nervousness. What did you say? Arya committed suicide? I turned over and buried myself in the quilt, blocking out all sounds. I thought I never wanted to hear anything about Asher again. I couldn't find any meaning in my existence. Or rather, living had become a torture for me. Asher came to the hospital for a long time. But Luna never let me see him. She didn't allow it, and I didn't want to see him either. I told her, please ask him to give me the divorce agreement as soon as possible. In case one day my depression flares up and I really jump off the hospital building, I don't want to die with the name of Mrs. Asher. Once, this title was my lifelong pursuit. But now, it has become a heavy shackle that I would rather die than bear. Okay, I promise you. After Luna came in again, she said, he said that as long as you promise to see him one more time, he will agree to the divorce. After hesitating for a long time, I nodded. When I saw Asher again, he looked much more haggard. So did I. I had never seen him in such a disheartened state. He looked even more miserable than when he was dumped. It couldn't be because of me. I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile. Asher, you've seen me. You can leave now. Just give the divorce agreement to Luna. Then I turned my face away. I felt tired just looking at him. It took a long time for him to speak. His voice was much more vicissitudes. Arya, I've posted the clarification. There's nothing between me and Isabella. She's the one who's been pestering me. I really have no feelings for her anymore. Maybe once, I loved her so much that I could give up my life. But these past few years, the one by my side has been you. Maybe I only have a little bit of unwillingness towards her. That day in the bar, I was really drunk, so I was muddle-headed and didn't chase after you. I'm sorry. I didn't know you would be so sad. I'll announce our relationship to the public tomorrow. I've never thought about divorcing you, Arya. Don't leave me, okay? I turned to look at him without any emotion. What do you expect me to give you? Asher, it's hard for me to even survive now. And it's all because of you. Because of you, I lost my dream of dancing, my mom's love, and even my own flesh and blood. Now I have nothing. What do you expect me to give you? With every word I said, Asher's face turned a shade paler. Child. You had a child? I smiled. Yes, I told you. What, Asher, are you pretending to be innocent now? I took out my phone screenshot and put it in front of him. See? It was you who didn't want our child, and it was you who pushed me into the abyss. Asher, you took advantage of my love for you and acted recklessly. But love can also run out. For 10 years, I loved you without reservation. Unfortunately, under your squandering, my love has dried up. Now I've finally lost the ability to love. Are you satisfied? If there's anything left for you from me, it's hatred. I hate you and Isabella. I wish you were dead. I cried and said to him, please die with her, okay? Go and accompany our child. He looked at me, his lips trembling. In the end, for a long time, he didn't say a word. But it seemed as if he was saying, Arya, I love you. I do love you. But I realized it too late. Fortunately, he didn't say it out loud, otherwise, I really feel so disgusted that I want to vomit. Asher left. He never came back again, and with Luna's company, I gradually recovered. Luna told me that Isabella's family went bankrupt. And Isabella, who had incited online violence against me on the internet, was later slapped in the face by the clarification video Asher posted. The backlash of the violence on her was even more obvious. Many netizens dug out a lot of photos of her on foreign social platforms. They found that the boyfriend she had in foreign countries already had a wife and children. Only then did netizens realize that Isabella was the one who actually knew someone was married and still got involved. In Asher's statement, he mentioned that I was a good wife, that I became lame to save him, and that the divorce was because he had an affair during the marriage. He said that he was the one who was sorry for me. And because of the online violence she incited against me, which led to my suicide attempt and almost cost me my life, after netizens learned about it, they vented all their anger on Isabella, making her a target of public condemnation, like a rat crossing the street, chased by all. Asher's post also caused the stock of the Asher family enterprise to plummet. The original plan for listing became indefinitely postponed due to this self-exposing post. But he didn't seem to care at all. In the division of marital property during the divorce, he transferred almost all of his personal assets to me. And Luna accepted them all on my behalf. At that time, Luna was accompanying me to recuperate in a foreign sanatorium. Then she took me traveling to see various sceneries. "I'll accompany you to do all the things Asher couldn't do," Luna said with a smile, holding my hand. "Who needs a man? It's pretty good for us sisters to be together." It was really good. Before leaving, I took Luna to visit my mom. In a trance, I saw her waving at me with a smile, as if she was satisfied with my decision. I remembered a sentence she said to me a long time ago: "Arya, it doesn't matter if you take the wrong path. What's important is to turn back in time." I took the wrong path, but I regretted it, and it was still in time. 11 later, I heard that Isabella was sold by her parents to a pot-bellied businessman to save their bankrupt enterprise. After marriage, when the wealthy businessman learned about Isabella's promiscuous private life, he started beating and kicking her, committing domestic violence. But every time she wanted to divorce, her parents persuaded her to reconcile. Just like that, she had 2 ribs broken and suffered from tinnitus and deafness. Later, she knelt in front of Asher, begging him to save her, but he didn't even look back. The young master of the Asher family almost never appeared in the public eye after the divorce. Later, someone actually photographed him burning incense and worshipping Buddha. When asked why he was doing this, he said calmly to the camera, "I have committed too many sins and need to atone for them. For the rest of my life, I will be accompanied by the dim light of the Buddha's lamp, praying for the well-being of one person." Everyone was guessing who this person was. When Luna told me this, I was watching the aurora in the Arctic. "Do you think the person he's talking about is you?" I thought for a while and replied to her, "Does it matter if it is or isn't?" That night, I had an unusually good sleep. In my dream, Asher reached out his hand to me, smiling brightly and freely. "Arya, come with me." I hesitated, then withdrew my hand and said to the young Asher, "Sorry, Asher. I want to make peace with myself and let go of you." The red string for peace on his wrist fell to the ground. I bid farewell to him in his surprised expression, "Goodbye, Asher. I'm going to start loving myself." Later, I received a letter overseas. When I opened it, there was a strong scent of sandalwood. It was in a familiar handwriting. "Arya, I owe you too much in this life. If I say that the thing I regret the most is not recognizing my own heart earlier, not treating you well earlier, and not letting go of my pride in front of you when I was young, would you believe me? However, I know you don't care anymore. I'm just a stranger to you. And you are the one I need to atone for all my life. But here, I still want to tell you, that day in the bar, I originally wanted to make a clean break with Isabella and my youth. But when I saw her, those memories came flooding back. I was possessed and said those words, as if giving my younger self a perfect ending. Then you showed up, and I was so flustered, but my pride kept me from moving even a step. After you walked out, I wanted to chase after you, but Isabella and others held me back and got me drunk. Isabella took the drunk me back home, secretly took out the ring that I wanted to give you when I got home, put it on her own hand, and took a photo. Then she used my phone to send you those messages, forcing you to abort our child. All this happened while I was drunk. Later, I didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. When you disappeared, I thought you were just angry for a while. When you didn't come back for a long time, I was in a panic. Then I received the divorce agreement you sent me. I was angry that you were making a big deal out of it. But I still couldn't help but want to find you. In a fit of anger, I said those hurtful words. But then I regretted it immediately. I stood downstairs of Luna's house all night, but you didn't come down. Later, when I saw the video Isabella posted, I wanted to clarify it immediately, but she begged me not to, saying that she was bankrupt and had nothing left. She asked me to spare her for the sake of our childhood friendship. I thought that since you had me, these rumors weren't that important. But you went through so much, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't stand by your side to protect you in time. When I found out, I wished I could die with you, so that I could keep you by my side even in death. But I know you don't even want to die with me. As I write this, my tears have wet the letter paper several times. I know these words are meaningless. They're just the ramblings of a fool. I don't expect you to forgive me, and you won't. But in the dead of night, I always dream of you crying to me. I dream of you when I just woke up from the operation, when you were beaten and injured, and when I proposed to you. You had so many tears, and they made my heart ache. Every time I have such dreams, I can't eat or sleep well, and I toss and turn. In my heart, you, Arya, are the only one who can be my wife. For the rest of my life, I will be by the side of the Buddha's lamp, sincerely praying for your happiness and safety. These are the words of a fool. Forget them after reading. Signed, the sinner Asher. 5 years later, my depression was cured. I used my money to build an orphanage to adopt those abandoned children. When I saw them, I seemed to see the child I aborted back then. As more and more children were adopted, I had fewer and fewer nightmares. I finally gradually found peace. Later, Luna, who had returned to China to live, called me. She told me that Asher had died. When he was found, he looked very peaceful, with a smile on his face. I was silent for a long time. After hanging up the phone, I waved to a little girl not far away. Her face beaming with joy, she came running towards me, Mom. All the children call me Dean Arya, but only she still calls me Mom as always. At the same time, my account received a large overseas remittance. I didn't need to think to know who it was from. Subsequently, I donated all the money. In a trance, that young man stood in the backlight, his lips curving up. Arya. Forgive me. I turned around. There was neither sadness nor joy on my face. My young man finally left me, and we would never see each other again, whether in life or death.